He had no idea who he was.
Turn around and put your hands behind your back.
He had no idea who he was. A quiet man, a canvas jacket, and a rental car with a scratched bumper. In any other town, he would have been invisible. But Cedar Ridge was not any other town. It was a place where one man's word was law, where silence had become a currency, and where a stranger's breakfast order would become the most dangerous mistake Sheriff Harold Briggs ever made. The man in the diner booth was Jack Sullivan, and he was not just passing through. He had been sworn in as the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation 11 days earlier. He had come to Cedar Ridge to investigate complaints that had been piling up for nearly 2 decades, a slow accumulation of arrests that vanished, charges that never stuck, and property that simply disappeared. The file was 19 years of silent arithmetic, and the common denominator was Sheriff Harold Briggs. At 7:15 on an ordinary Thursday morning, Jack Sullivan sat down in a diner booth with a view of the sheriff's department. He ordered eggs over medium, bacon, and wheat toast. The waitress, Nora Whitfield, wrote it down without looking at her pad, a woman who had been serving coffee to the same faces for so long that she could predict a man's order before he sat down. The room was filled with the usual sounds of a small-town morning, the quiet murmur of conversations, the clink of forks on plates, the low hum of a radio from the kitchen, and no one looked at the stranger twice. That calm shattered at 7:40 when the bell over the door rang and Sheriff Harold Briggs walked in. He moved through the room the way a king surveys his court, greeting men by their first names and putting a hand on familiar shoulders. It was a performance so practiced that no one questioned it. Then he reached the second booth along the window and he stopped. He looked down at Jack Sullivan and told him, with a smile that was almost friendly, that he was in the sheriff's seat. He said that he had been sitting there every morning for 19 years and that he would appreciate it if the gentleman would move to the counter. Jack Sullivan looked up at him and did not move. He said he had been seated by the waitress, his food was already served, and he intended to finish it. He said it with no heat in his voice, like a man stating a simple fact. The room went quiet. The sheriff laughed once, short and disbelieving, and then he stopped laughing when no one joined him. In 19 years, no one had ever said no to him out loud. Briggs turned to the room first, checking his audience, a tell that Jack filed away in his mind. Then he announced, loud enough for the entire parking lot to hear, that the gentleman had been asked twice to comply with a lawful order and had refused. He said the word obstruction, and the moment he said it, the handcuffs were already in his hand. Jack set his fork down flat on the plate and put both hands on the table where everyone could see them. He stood when he was told to stand, and he turned around without being asked, his body moving faster than his judgment, a habit born from 13 years on the other side of the law. The steel closed on his wrists, and Sheriff Briggs ratcheted them 1 notch tighter than necessary. The entire diner watched. 40 people, and not one of them said a word. That was the part that Jack would remember, not the cold metal or the tightness, but the silence. He stood facing the window with his own reflection staring back at him, and he cataloged the room behind him. The 2 men in feed store caps studying their coffee, the woman at the counter with her pen frozen over a crossword puzzle, Nora Whitfield with both hands flat on the register and her jaw set tight. Every one of them knew this was wrong. Every one of them had done the same arithmetic and arrived at the same answer, that a stranger's bad morning was cheaper than 19 years of consequences. At 8 o'clock exactly, the phone in Jack's jacket pocket began to ring. It rang against his ribs, muffled 6 times, and then it stopped. Vance heard it and grinned, saying that the man's ride was calling. Briggs did not react at all, busy telling a story about a case out on the county road 3 summers back. The phone rang a second time 40 seconds later, then a third, and no one took it out of his pocket. No one searched him for it, and no one asked whose it was. Jack stood absolutely still against the patrol car and let it ring. For the first time since the cuffs had closed, something in his face changed, not to fear, but to something much worse for Harold Briggs. Patience. They came from the west end of Main Street at 8:35. 3 black SUVs, new, identical, with plates that were not state plates. The lead vehicle came into the diner lot at an angle that closed the exit. The second stopped nose out on the street. The third pulled across the mouth of the driveway and stayed there with its engine running. Doors opened at once. 9 people got out, and every one of them had a badge on a chain and a windbreaker with 3 letters across the back in yellow. The lot went silent in the space of a breath. A woman came around the front of the lead SUV with her credentials already up. She was somewhere near 50, dark suit under the windbreaker, and she scanned the lot in one pass the way people are trained to do. She looked at the man in handcuffs and something went across her face and was gone. Her name was Caroline Hayes, Special Agent, Federal Bureau of Investigation. She said she was looking for Director Jack Sullivan. Harold Briggs stepped forward, pleased to be useful, pleased to be the man in charge on his own ground with federal officers asking him a question. He pointed with his whole hand at the man leaning against his patrol car. "That's your boy right there," he said. "Picked him up about 45 minutes ago in the diner." Obstruction. If he's part of your business, he's all yours. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos.